welcome Pensacola to another edition of Pensacola's Unsung Heroes, folks. As you know, I've been doing a very long series of important people in the Pensacola area, and I wanted to bring you some history of Pensacola. And my guest today, there is no stranger if you live in Pensacola who my guest is today, and that is Mr. Lester Smith. Lester, welcome to Unsung Heroes.
Thank you very much, Vernon.
All righty then. I tell you what, Lester, I um, I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of people in town that done a lot of things, and a lot of things that just really goes unnoticed on who did what. And I think that the legacy should be told. And I look upon you as one of those unsung heroes in our community, Lester. That you've done so many things in this community that impact our community that a lot of folks really sometimes don't know who did what. And I want to talk to them about it because, in my estimation, you've done a lot of things for Pensacola. And I want to get behind the man. I want folks to know out of his own mouth the man behind the man, Mr. Lester A. Smith. Lester, tell us, give some history. Who is Lester Smith?
Really, Vernon. What you see is what you get with me.
Hmm.
Uh, I really started probably being involved in public life uh, way back in the '70s, just by organizing a group called Concerned Citizen for Community Action, because we just had so many things that were going on in the neighborhood where blacks were not involved. They were not getting their fair share uh, of the money from local government, all those things as for recreational, sidewalks, housing, all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of drafted by some of my buddies to kind of lead this little small group. And that really just led me into politics. Uh, I also was probably one of the first blacks to be hired at the old Southern Bell uh, back
Right.
in 1967. And it was just that correlation of things that just got me involved in the union movement and in politics and all those kinds of things. So that's where I really started thinking about maybe I could contribute something to the community, and that's really where it all started at.
All right. Well, I think it's probably started much earlier than that. Let's. Are you a native of Pensacola? Let's talk about you as Lester as a child and your parents. I know a lot of the influences probably came from your early childhood. Let's talk. Let's go back all the way back, and let's talk about how who you are is where you were when.
I was actually born in 1947 uh, at the old hospital down on Romana Street, known as Our Ladies of Angels Hospital, where St. Joseph Church and their properties now are. Um, I was raised initially by the old Sunlight Baptist Church on where the interstate goes through on Hernandez Street. I was
Yeah.
actually born. I actually raised there.
Okay.
The old Sunlight Baptist Church on the corner of Hain and Tarragona. I was raised up in that church. Uh, I split time between my parents and my grandparents. My mom was a single parent, so a lot of times I stayed with my grandparents. But they only lived like 3 or 4 blocks down the street, so it wasn't like I had to go anywhere, you know, for a babysitter or anything. We were just like a community. And when the interstate came through and just took our house and all that stuff, we were kind of like gypsies. We moved from Hernandez Street to the 10 yard, several different locations in the 10 yard. Uh, Played little league baseball down there. Walked to school because I was just inside the benchmark for being able to catch a bus. You had to live 2 miles from the school to be able to catch a bus. So we walked from the 10 yard uh, all the way to old junior high school and those kind of things. So we went through all that kind of stuff when I was growing up. So it was kind of like a baptism by fire. I just kind of been doing grassroots stuff all along. So it was just my parents just raised us to just try to do the right thing, and I got my share of butt whoopings. But that background from them, uh, both of them. My father was a porter. They call him Genesis now. He's a porter at the Pensacola News Journal. Uh, my mom and I used to walk to work. She would clean the house for an old wholesale grocery distributor over on Lakeview Street. She would clean the inside of the house, and at a very young age, I started cutting their yard. So we walked to work together. She walked to work, and I go to work. My first experience at work was actually cutting yards for like $3, $4, $5 a yard, and just really just kind of evolved from that uh, to my current career, and being able to retire from the phone company, and spend some time in politics, and several other different things that I kind of dabbled in. Nightclub business, of course, that you know about, as a part of my life too. So I just kind of done a lot of things, and a lot of them were just by happenstance and just by being fortunate and blessed.
Okay. Uh, I know you probably, like many of us, your grandparents probably had a great influence on you as well. What lesson did you learn from your grandparents that influenced your life?
I think one thing is that, and it's probably a harsh word to say, uh, but fear of authority and leadership and your parents. That's one thing I'll never forget. As you see what's going on in our society today, parents being disrespected by their kids and their grandkids, and just that there's no stabilization in the home, because that ascension comes from your mom, your grandparents, and all that. And like I said, it was a community thing. I mean, our neighbors uh, put us in check, but discipline was something that was taught in the house. Respect. Uh, you go to church. You dress a certain way. You do certain things. You always aware of your surroundings, and they kind of instill that stuff in us. And they always let us know that nothing is given to you. You got to work for it. So that basic lesson came from my grandparents, uh, and my parents. It was just that was there. You knew to fear consequences. If you did something wrong, there's some consequences coming. And as you know nowadays, you can pretty much do anything you want to until the folks in with the badge in the car come. There's no repercussions for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. Which one of the schools did you graduate from in town?
Booker T. Washington High School,
Booker T. Washington. Okay. Here we
the,
go.
the one on Texar. I know Tahar is the popular term nowadays, but it was Texar when we were going to school.
All right.
My
So,
early education was at Spencer Bibbs on Davis.
mhm,
I left there, went to John A. Gibson. Left John A. Gibson, went to Booker T. Junior High School on A Street, right down the street where I'm currently living. And then, as I said, we walked from over here to Washington High School on Texar, and that's where I graduated from.
okay.
Class of
Now,
1966.
when you went to Booker T. Washington High School on Texas, okay, I know at least one teacher had a major influence on your life. Can you think of one teacher that helped shape Lester A. Smith?
The one that really reaches out to me is Miss Sylvia Todd. She taught me business machine, business management, and she kind of really just kind of instilled in me uh, a lot of the values that I have now. And one other one that I don't want to leave out is Miss Martin. She's my English teacher, and she was really hard on me. I never knew why, but she just stayed on me constantly, and had a real lasting impact on my life. Another one, Vernon, was my homeroom teacher, Miss Julia Arnold. She really and truly, for some reason, she apparently adopted me because I was a little bit mischievous in high school. I started feeling my oats. People probably won't believe it now because I'm so outgoing and active. Uh, in school, I was actually a bookworm.
Okay.
I was quiet. I was a bookworm. I wasn't cracking the jokes and doing the things that I do now. I did that the second half of my senior year because once you figure you got it made, you start to act up those last few months when you half days in school and not going to school. Uh, but she kind of kept me on point and really kind of directed me in the direction that I ended up going.
Okay. Well, very good. Now, when you was the Bell South job is your first career job, or was that your how did that
My
happen?
first
During those years, discrimination was at its finest. How did that happen?
that's an excellent point. I was actually uh, working at my I think must have been my second or third job because my first real job was at
Hmm.
the old Sears and Roebuck downtown.
Okay.
I was a
Well, even
custodian at Sears and Roebuck.
okay.
I worked at Sears and Roebuck for 2 or 3 years uh, down on it was on Romana, and I actually caught the bus to work to show you talk about humble beginnings. Okay, I caught the city bus to work from North Alkanee Street, which is where I was living then, to the old Sears and Roebuck downtown. I worked down there. When I left there, I went to a place called Pensacola Industrial Service, where they put together the box cylinders for the nylon that was made at Monsanto back in the old days. I took a lunch break one day and walked downtown, and I happened to walk by Southern Bell's employment office, and they had a sign in the window saying we're taking applications. I walked in there. The young lady let me fill out the application, and she said we get in touch with you. Much to my surprise, 3 days later, she called me and asked me when I could come down and take the test. I went down, successfully passed the test, and before I could walk back to work on North Palafox Street, I had a phone call wanting to know when I could come to work. I didn't know how that happened, Vernon, but the way it happened was that there was a class action suit filed against uh, the phone company for discrimination. And they had only one black technician. It's an inside job because I thought I was hiring to go outside and climb poles. I ended up being hired on as an inside technician because that one black guy left and they needed a black guy inside. I learned this later. I didn't know that then. I thought I was just the smartest thing on the block, and they were just hiring me because I was so brilliant. But I found out what the evolution was, that they had to have somebody. Uh, and I ended up being there at the right time, at the right place. I went back to my job, told my boss I had this position offered. I told him I want to give him my notice. He said, let me tell you one thing, man. What you're making here, don't you worry about giving me a notice. You can always come back here. This is an opportunity for you. And he told me, look, as soon as they want you, you run down there to that job. And that's where I started at Southern Bell, as it was called at that time. And I stayed there for 33 years.
Well, Lester, I want to get back to a point you just made, uh, that you thought you was the best and the brightest. Let me tell you, you were. I'm telling you right now, you would never get that job have you not been the best and the brightest, okay? Because I found in my experience that we had to be twice as qualified, twice as good to get the same job as our white counterparts would have done it. So, I know you're not selling yourself short on that aspect of it. They just hired you because they needed somebody black, but they just wouldn't have hired any black person. I can tell you that right now. So,
And I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things that just as another evolutionary point, Vernon, uh, I was the first black union president at the phone company.
really.
That was where my political career actually started outside of my neighborhood activism.
Hmm.
I was a shop steward, and you very well know what that is. I was
Yeah.
a union representative for all of the folks. Uh, and my union president uh, told me that he just saw something in me, and he wanted to make me a department representative, and then I evolved to a second vice president, and then I got to be the vice president. He got promoted to management, and I stepped in to fill his unexpired term as the union president. I was subsequently reelected 5, 6, 7 times. I became the first black president of a major telephone union uh, in this area.
Yeah.
I further went on to become the first person from Pensacola to be the head of a coalition we call the National Black Communication Coalition, which was a combination of all the union presidents and officers all over the entire United States.
Mm.
I evolved to that position. And that got us into lobbying for the union and going to Tallahassee and lobbying. And that also moved me towards my political career. So there was a whole process to this thing that people would never know because it's nothing that I ever anticipated. I just kind of walked into it and kept moving and moving, and was able to be successful in that venture as well. So there's been some things that have come in my life that I've been very fortunate and very blessed.
Well, and that's why I'm having these shows like this. Okay, many people that work down at Bell South owe a, a debt of gratitude to you. Probably wasn't even aware that they standing on Lester Smith's shoulders, and so that's what I wanted to get this out because a lot of things in that we don't what we don't know about is I can tell you, and I know a lot of folks had some successful careers at AT. What did you call Bell South then, wasn't it? What you
It was
call
Bell
it?
South.
Yep. Yeah.
It was called Southern Bell initially.
Southern Bell.
Then,
Yeah,
then,
Southern
then
Bell.
okay, it was Southern Bell. It was Southern Bell back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So, and sometimes you wonder how who you are, what how did you get your job? Don't think that you got it by yourself. 'Cause a lot of folks have did some long sweat and tears and died even for the reason that you where you are today. And I just want folks to know that work for Southern Bell, folks like you, Lester Smith, is the reason that they are there, and I want them to reflect on that. Not only that, you did a lot of other things as well. Oh, what actually when you I guess that unionism that kind of put that activism and that political gump, if you will, in you. Am I about right, or
You're absolutely correct,
were
man.
you born
Because
with that?
that's the last thing. The last thing I ever thought I would be involved in is politics.
Hmm.
That's the last thing I thought I'd be. Like I thought I'd be a stand-up comedian or a singer or an entertainer. I mean that those were the goals because back in the day, and people may not realize it. One of my favorite musicians was Elvis Presley.
Hmm.
I had a guitar. I had me some blue suede shoes, and I that was just part of my early upbringing. Like he's on the TV, he's shaking, he's wiggling, and I've always liked to dance and stuff. So that was really what I had initially as something that I might want to do. So involvement in the union got me involved in politics, and it was just like I guess it was a natural fit for me once I got into it. It's nothing that I planned out. It just kind of planned to me. So we kind of ended up being kind of a marriage. And as much as I like to talk, and as much as I like to deal and interact with people, it ended up being a natural fit. So it kind of evolved from that union activism uh, that kind of transitioned into the political career.
Okay. Now you say you stayed with Southern Bell and Bell South for how many years?
33.
33 years. Wow. From the time you walked in there off the streets. Very good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, what did that lead to after that? I mean, I know during the time you worked in Southern Bell, you got involved. You got to be city councilman. You got so many things. I know that over the last 30 years that I've been knowing you, you've been involved with the nightclub business. I know.
Oh yeah.
I saw you at you maybe even before then, but I remember the old ambassador days. You run that and Else Club and stuff. What? How did that transition? How did you get involved with the nightclub business?
The interesting thing was my involvement with the nightclub as well. Of course, at an early age, I was going to them. So that's the first introduction. But what happened is that just to go to show you how things always intertwine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when I was on the city council, Dr. Spence, the late Dr. Spence,
Mm-hmm.
who actually organized the Ambassadors Club, okay,
Right. Right.
wanted to infuse politics into the Ambassadors Club because he brought a bunch of us young guys in to introduce us into business. But he also wanted to show us the correlation between business and politics and how you need to be connected to people. And he asked me to come on as a board member for political perspective,
Okay.
as a connection between the ambassadors and politics, and just to show the other young guys around, hey, look here, this is how this works. This is how you do the deals, and this is how you get to make sure that your zoning stuff and all that stuff doesn't impact your business. You need to be connected. You need to be on these committees. So Dr. Spence actually brought me in to the nightclub business from a political perspective, and that's how I got involved in that. And my God, we stayed there for several years, and then after that, of course, I got involved in the restaurant and the restaurant and liquor business out at the Osceola Municipal Golf Course. Me and a group of guys became a part of the ownership group of that particular business. So I evolved from there, and then I ended up coming down to the Elks and started working in the Elks Lodge. So it's just been like a whirlwind of activity in my life that thrust me into being involved in all this. It's just been a wonderful and great life, and I've enjoyed it all.
Wow. Okay. Well, I can tell you what, Lester, you have done a lot of things. Not only were you involved in the nightclub business, and not were you only involved with politics and with the union, and you was involved with some other things like the Belmont Developer housing thing. Could you talk to us about that? Or many things have you done in your life that, like I say, impact other people, but we just don't know what how your life has impacted other people's lives here in Pensacola. Let's talk about those things.
And one thing, Vernon, that really and truly I love talking about, but it's been so long ago till a lot of times it kind of gets pushed aside.
Hmm.
Back when I was doing that community organizing and initially starting in politics, because of my union involvement, there was an organizer who came here from the oil and chemical workers in Houston, Texas,
Hmm.
and he was in town trying to organize some of the oil workers up in the old J oil fields, and he happened to I happened to run into him, or he ran into me, and it could have been at the ambassador, it could have been anywhere, but he took an interest in helping me with one of my first political campaigns. He actually got involved in the mail out campaign, the door to door campaign, and all of that stuff. And that guy really and truly just got me into focusing on what else could be done with that community organization. Uh,
Hmm.
Patricia Harris was the head of HUD, Housing and Urban Development in Washington, under Jimmy Carter's administration. Uh, I had the opportunity to meet President Jimmy Carter because of my union involvement. One thing I did forget, I was also president of the Northwest Florida Coalition for Labor, which was an organization of all the labor unions in the Northwest Florida area. And we came out early. CWA and the electrical workers came out early endorsing Jimmy Carter. And when he flew in here to the base, we got invitations to go out and shake hands with him and meet him at the base. I got that picture on one of my walls here, and he sent me a invitation to his inauguration and all that stuff. So that involvement just got me just thrust into all kind of stuff that you never figured you would ever be involved in. Back on the neighborhood thing and the housing, we were walking around uh, noticing all the cracked sidewalks, no street lights, substandard housing in the area. And when Pat Harris was director of HUD, She had a legal advisor. Drew H. Days was in charge of the legal ramifications for the housing department. This guy from Texas, this union organizer, sat down with me and he drafted letters from President Carter to Secretary Harris to Drew Days to everybody about how HUD funds were being improperly used by the city of Pensacola. They should have been coming to the black neighborhoods, and they were putting them in the tennis courts and everywhere else. Steve Garman was the city manager. Faison was the mayor, and we sent copies of that letter to all the elected officials. And I don't know if you remember, Vernon, but that started. Nobody knew where it came from. That started the downfall of Steve Garman and all those guys. Those guys actually left city government because of that misappropriation of funds, and it started a lot of the infill housing, a lot of the housing programs. They were just in their infancy, nothing like they later became. But that was really the catalyst uh, for some of the money that we needed to have that should have all been ours to come into the black community. And I'm very, very proud of my involvement in that.
Well, very good because that's I didn't know that fact, but that's a great fact. I knew about the downfall of it. I knew a little bit of history of that, but I didn't know what was the underlining cause of all that. See, that's good history. Probably a lot of folks don't know that, Lester, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about certain things in Pensacola that people need to know. How do we get there from here? Why we here? There's some reason why we enjoying some of the privileges that we're enjoying, and it isn't because it was automatically done. A lot of people behind the scenes, like yourself and many others, had to do a lot of work to make things happen in this town. And these is what I call the unsung heroes, the Pensacola's unsung heroes that people sit back and quietly do their thing and not asking for any recognition, not seeking any accolades, and doesn't and 9 times out of 10 doesn't get any accolades because of their quiet mind mannered storm that they don't seek that stuff. But I think it's worthy of bringing forward this kinds of stuff, this information that folks need to know about in Pensacola. Tell us some more about Lester Smith.
I think you pretty much got me now. A lot more of my involvement now is with my church because I'm a trustee at the church, and we just kind of things just happen to you. Not so much because you're so good or whatever, but circumstances kind of get you involved. My wife and I were married at Trinity Baptist Church over 41 years ago, I've been going there and going there, and I go sporadically sometime, and then for the past oh God, almost 8 9 years maybe, it's been a constant thing for me to do, and we had a severe amount of hurricane damage at our church, and just like people are always volunteered, and people will volunteer you for stuff, uh, when you really and truly have no intention of doing it. So I got volunteered for being the chairman of the trustee board down there, and that's a full time job at any church.
Yeah.
That hurricane damage just gave me an opportunity to just interact with people and in the building industry and all of that, and we just happened to meet a public adjuster going through our struggles with the insurance company. I know you've heard a lot about that around town. We really and truly did, and we met this guy that was a Jewish guy. His name, I call him Mendy because we got to be so close. But his name was Menendez, and he came into that church and sat down and gave a presentation about, look, guys, uh, you're not going to be treated fair by the insurance company, so you just got, you know, uh, I'll help you 10% of what I get you over what I already got, then we'll go to work. That man went to work, Vernon, and he was a blessing for us. He probably got us, oh my God, 300, 400 5% more money on our claim than we ever would have gotten,
Yeah.
and we're able to do stuff at that church that, and it's just by happenstance you run into these people and you say, hey, let's take a chance, talk to the pastor and other folks. Hey man, let's give this guy a chance. Let's see what he can do. And that was one of the big blessings. And that's just something else that you get thrust into. Uh, I don't know nothing about construction, nothing about none of that stuff. But this guy put together a team that has done wonders for our church. And I recommended him to other people in the community, and he's been able to help them also. It's just about sharing the wealth and just, you do stuff
Yeah.
that you don't know you're going to do until you look back in your rearview mirror and you see all this pile of junk back there, and you just say, hey, where'd that come from? So it's just, my life has really been good, and I've been really blessed. And I continue to try to do stuff to help people whenever I can. And that's just pretty much, that's just me. I'm just a people loving person, and I just do what I can do if I can, and if I need to help you, you need me to help you do something or advise you or give you some advice. Like the other young guys who come in the clock now, stop me and ask me questions. Say, hey man, thank you for still being here and for this being here. And I tell them it's a collaborative effort because it's a group. The Elks is owned by a group, so I might be the face that you see, but that's not all me. We got a great team doing this, and we want to keep this here for you young guys. But you need to straighten up and fly right, so it'll be a place that we can still be proud of.
Absolutely. Lester, I want to get back to your transition into the political world. I know you did a stint on the Pensacola City Council, and let's talk about how did that happen, and how long did you and all the great work you did when you were you was one of the very first early black, probably wasn't the very first one, but you were one of the very first ones to serve on city council. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, yeah. And what happened? What happened? If you remember when the group of black guys, Brother McMillan, Sam Horton, Bernie McDaniels, all those guys, filed that suit. Okay. And ended up, it resulted in us being able to have single member districts,
Right.
which gave us a better shot at being elected in a predominantly white community. So
For you
that lawsuit,
explain, hey,
okay,
for the benefit of our audience, I know the story about it, but give us summarize that lawsuit and tell us where we were before, and then why these guys were motivated to do that, and then afterward, and then what made it possible for you. A lot of folks don't know about those guys. Let's talk about those guys for a minute, and how do we get there from here? Okay.
this group of guys filed suit against the old existing predominant election philosophy in the South and in Pensacola. Uh, it was called a at-large system, okay, where everybody from the whole city could vote for a representative in my area. Okay, it was just the majority. Whoever got the most votes got elected. Of course, we know we're the minority. So for the better part of our political history, majority of your elected officials were white
Hmm.
because the majority of the constituency and voters were white. So this suit said we are being underrepresented in our neighborhoods. We can't get elected in this at-large system. So they filed suit to see if we could get a better way of electing our people to represent us. This lawsuit ended up being successful, and we didn't get the whole pie. They split it with us. They gave us X number of individual districts where they would cut the map of the area down and make sure that there would be enough black voters in so many areas that we had a statistical chance of winning the election. It ended up being just as it was predicted. We ended up getting us three districts that would be predominantly black. And that ended up with us for the first time in the history of this town electing three black council representatives at one time to the Pensacola City Council. And one thing about politics, you have to know how to count. We had 10 city council people, so we only had three of us. So that's where politics come to play. when I was down there, I always told my co-city council people, hey, we can argue about black this, black that. We can argue that all day. But when the gavel hits and it's 7-3, you don't accomplish anything.
Right.
You got to know how to count.
Right.
You got to do some give and take. You got to work with the other side because they don't always get along.
Right.
So they're not going to always agree. So we got a block of 3 over here. We can play this numbers game, but it's going to take give and take. So that was part of it that I really and truly enjoyed it because my union negotiating activities uh, allowed me to be able to maneuver in a way that we could work that out. And a lot of times they didn't like me siding with this one, siding with that one, and conversely, I didn't like them either. But in order to get any victories, you had to know how to count, and that was one thing that I was pretty good at counting. So that was the in a nutshell a quick wrap up of the benefit of that lawsuit and single member districts did for us. It also transferred over to the county commission where we were elected to get us a black county commissioner because of that same type setup. Uh, so and now what we're having, Vernon, I think you see it. Uh, uh, the system is trying to eliminate that kind of circumstance now because people are moving into our neighborhoods and they're changing the demographics again. There'll be a time where there'll be very few opportunities for a black person to be elected because they're being systematically gerrymandered out of their own neighborhoods.
Exactly
So
right.
we need to be cognizant of that and be aware of that. You know, your property needs to be your property so you'll have some say so over your future.
That, Lester, you know, I tell you, and people just don't really sometimes understand the impact of gerrymandering, and they don't understand the impact of gentrification. Those two things is going to be the downfall of our political clout, if you will. And so that's why it's important for folks to stay active and vote and register to vote and encourage other people to vote. But I can tell you now. Let's talk about Lester Smith. How did you end up on the city council?
Here again, like I said, as I talked about before, I was just a neighborhood organizer. Okay, I was just walking around with my friends. Hey, you need this done. I know how you who you can call to get your house fixed, get your roof fixed. There's public money for this, public money for that, and I really and truly was just going around doing that. So one day, some of my folks in my little organization said, "Hey, look at man, look at you talk so much. Why don't you just run for office?" So my first stint at running for office, I ran at large.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran against an attorney. His name was Brian Lane.
Yeah.
He lived about 8 blocks down from me on Strong Street. I ran against him at large. Brian Lane beat me in my first attempt at politics. Citywide, Brian Lane beat me by only 114 votes.
Wow.
The very first time I ran for office, I had so many little kids with my little straw hats and my bumper stickers around and walking around, knocking on doors. I mean, we just went all out. And this guy that I told you about, the chemical worker, came in and helped me organize that first campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got through it and Brian won, Brian called me. He said, "Man," he said, "Let me tell you something. You ran a great race." He said, "And I don't want to run against you again." Brian was an attorney. He said, "I'm not going to run for office anymore." In that transition, it's when the court decision finally came through.
Mm.
So when I ran the next time, I ran in a single member district and won my first election. And subsequently, I won 2 additional times. And then I was defeated. And then during Hurricane Ivan, when Councilman Hugh King resigned,
Mm-hmm.
they asked me to come back and serve out his unexpired term. So
Right.
I spent some more time on the city council, kind of steering us through that horrible event called Hurricane Ivan.
Yeah.
Uh, One other thing that probably people don't know is when I was on the city council, uh, I was the chairman of the Public Enterprise Committee and was uh, steering that first major expansion at the Pensacola International Airport. Now,
Hmm.
I was the chairman of that committee. Uh, we interviewed all the vendors, looked at all the contracts. All of that stuff was under my direction as chairman of that public enterprise committee. I was also over the port of Pensacola, which started uh, the onslaught of additional cargo coming in Pensacola, additional jobs for longshoremen. That all ties into my union background, Vernon, because people don't realize some of the highest paid people in Pensacola back in the day were longshoremen.
Right.
They the highest paid people because they were unionized. And people that didn't realize the impact. And they talk about them, how much money they made, but those guys sacrificed for that. And it was because they were organized. And there's just so much that went on that even me now, I'm 76, I can't remember a lot of it. But I pull out newspaper clippings that my wife finds to stuck back in some stuff sometime and just read stories about stuff that happened
Right.
uh, just because I was involved, not because of me, just because I happened to be there and they happened to happen while I was there. So there's just so much. I mean, and you really don't have time to talk about all the things that are intertwined in a life in politics, a life in the union movement, and all those kinds of stuff, man. And then, in addition to that, you still got to live your everyday life
Yeah.
and try to keep some sanity in your life. So it's been enjoyable for me, and just to think that I've been able to be involved in so many things in what I call is a short life. I mean, 76 is a long time, but time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. Well, Lester, you done a lot of things over those 76 years of your life, and you did a lot of things. I think that has been a credit to Pensacola, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about it because you see Lester Smith, so you're a fun-loving person. If you know Lester, Lester, you remind you of me. You got two modes I see you in. You're a fun-loving person. You can joke and clown and dance and do all that kind of stuff. And then, but when you flip that switch to be a strict businessman, you strictly business or you strictly playful. That's one thing. And whenever they catch you in that mode, sometimes they get surprised. Sometimes that you got that real serious business mode about you because of your persona as being a fun loving person, and that's what people know. If everybody knows Lester Smith, they know that's a great guy. I can remember him down in the ambassador days dancing and I'm glad you said that because that's what a lot of folks don't know about Lester Smith. Like you said, you idolized Elvis Presley. You had a guitar. You wanted to sing and dance your way through life, and 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 you did that. You did it your way, but that explained to me why you do what you do and did what you did, which was great. But one other thing that I want to know, okay, that when you see people, Lester, and you always wondered that what their motivations are and why they do what they do. Now, I got one other thing I want to ask you about because this is goes to the heart of who Lester Smith's persona is and who Lester Smith is. Lester is always known for his hat. Okay. All right. Tell us a story about the Lester. Why these hats, Lester?
Vernon, I wish I could. I wish I could. I've got a life size poster of me
Uh huh.
when I was 10 years old, and let me just grab it. And if I
Okay.
could I
Yeah.
grab
Yeah.
that? And
Yeah. Go grab it. 'Cause I,
I want to show you something when I was 10 years old,
okay.
which might just answer that better than I can tell you.
Okay. So Lester going to get a poster from when he was actually when he was 10 years old. Wow, that is amazing. Uh, I might explain something here. I want to be able to see that. Y'all just stand by because we got Lester going and get a poster, a life-size poster when he was 10 years old, probably with this hat on. Okay, and so we're gonna have to adjust you. You're gonna have to adjust your camera so we can see that poster there.
Hang on.
Bring it on back.
I
Bring
get
it
it.
on. Other way. Yeah. Opposite way. Go ahead. Come on. Go. Go ahead. Opposite way. Opposite way.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Okay. So if you look at the camera, it's to your left. But you're going to your right. You're going the opposite. We go just the opposite of what you're doing. Just the opposite. Turn your computer. Come on. Keep turning. Keep turning. Keep turning. You
Okay.
might have to, you
See
might have
that?
to pick up you might have to pick up that laptop and just show them. Listen. And you stand right beside it, but I can see it now. See. There we go. Oh, okay. Now, how old were you, Lester?
10.
You was
10 years.
um,
10 years old.
okay. All right. So what was the hat at 10 years old? Did you understand why you was wearing the hat at 10 years old?
I always dressed, and that's just the way my mom and grandma and them dressed me. We just that was just something that I don't know why I started, but that's where it came from. That's where it originated.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, that's one good thing about what we know about Lester Smith is that you always been a snazzy dresser, and you always wore hats. I always wanted to ask you about the hats. Where did the hat come from? And so, at 10 years old, you were wearing those hats. Ain't that
I
something?
was wearing hats.
Wow.
Absolutely.
But you never know
And that's
why.
just been my
Yeah, that's just
that's just been my trait.
back. I'm going to speculate. Okay? I'm just going to speculate. And we're talking about the influences of your grandparents. I know back in my grandparents' day, that was the days that they used to wear hats then. Okay, and perhaps you probably picked it up from your granddaddy. And
Granddaddy, I had an uncle that wore hats. I mean, they just hey, it was passed on. I didn't just wake up one day and just started wearing hats.
very good,
But it
very
was, and
good.
it stuck with me.
Yeah,
My brothers and stuff, they never particularly cared about hats. But the reason is they spent most of their lives in the military, so they weren't going to be wearing no hats in the
yeah,
military.
yeah, yeah. But military require you to wear a hat, so they probably didn't want to wear no more after that anyway. So
Take
they
that
got
thing off and leave it alone.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, now because we're gonna run out of time here pretty soon here, but I want to get back to Lester Smith, the man. Okay, and Lester, I know there's a lot of things that we hadn't talked about. Okay, and a lot of things probably you probably have forgotten. But there's anything else that we don't know about Lester Smith that we should know about Lester Smith?
One thing also is that a lot of the things aside from politics and aside from the phone company, uh, I also did a lot of volunteering. Uh, I
Mm-hmm.
was the vice chairman of the United Way for several years. Uh, I served on the board of Family and Children Services. I served on the West Florida Regional Planning Council, which laid out future land use plans for the whole uh, uh, Northwest Florida, Panama City, Tallahassee region. Those kinds of things that you were doing that were going to impact the lifestyle of generations and generations to come. Uh, just by being involved in politics, folks say, "Hey, won't you serve on this or serve on that?" And me, I got a real problem with saying no. But those things tended to benefit a lot of folks that I didn't even realize it back when I was doing it. It was just say, "Hey, you want to do this? Okay, I'll give it a shot." Uh, and it's just I just got a real problem with saying no. So I volunteer for a lot of stuff that it's gratifying to me, but hopefully it's beneficial to the community at large. So I do a lot of charity stuff in addition to all the stuff that I do that appears to be benefiting me.
Now you also served on the board of CEI, didn't you?
Yeah, still do.
But tell folks, you know, that's another organization I'm gonna have to interview because I don't think it is as well. And it's been around for years, but I don't think people know as much about it that I think that we should know. That's a little bit about CEI.
And it's a community development organization that primarily specializes in low income housing and small business loans for people who will go to a bank and be turned down and wouldn't be able to get loans to start their business or to continue their business or to help them with cash flow opportunities. We really and truly we're in the forefront of developing low income housing in our core areas. We got some areas outside of the city, but basically. We have just developed housing and we've given small business loans to the businesses that people never would have even known. If you remember places like Harvest Beauty and Barber Supply, Michael Allen's place there on Belmont and the Villas,
Yeah.
there's just a multitude of black businesses, hair salons, and you, Vernon, the list goes on, and it's the community development organization. It originated with census tracts where there had to
Right.
be representatives from every uh, geographical location uh, represented on that board to make sure that anything we do would be distributed throughout the whole community, and you couldn't just get your little block of votes and all the money would go here and you loan all your loans uh, to this particular set of people. It has been really a beneficial organization, and it is basically government funded. Most of our money comes from the SBA. We get some money from banks because the history of CEII and our success has been because of bank cooperation. People will go to the banks. The banks would then say, "We can't do it because your income's too low, your credit's a little bit bad." But we do credit counseling. Uh, we do high risk loans. We allow people to try to get a leg up uh, when they totally out. They have nowhere else to go. And we've been doing this for years and years and years. And some of the people that have been on our board, people like Bill Bird from Gut Power, Wayman Wynn, Ron Townsend. I mean, David Hawkins. The list goes on and on. These people volunteer to do this, and we've got an excellent staff. But a person that would benefit you, Vernon, if you wanted to interview somebody, would be Percy Goodman Jr.,
I
our
would
executive
love,
director.
I would
He
love to
could give
interview
you.
Percy. Make sure
It
you
would be
send
good
me
for you to.
his information when
I'll
you
do it.
get time. Okay. I would love to
I'll
interview
do it because
Percy. Okay.
he can give you more insight in that organization because it is a wonderful organization, and funding is strapped now with the new conservative administration. That we've had previously in Washington. The funds for that kind of activity have been cut, so we got to do a lot of fundraising. We need outreach programs so we can continue that vital organization because it has truly been an organization that has helped uh, black people with housing and loans and all kind of hardship situations for years and years and years.
Wow. Wow. And that's the kind of things that black people really need to know about because folks like you and folks like Percy and folks like Ron, all the names that you named, Wayman Wynn, all those folks, done so much in this community that people really don't realize how great an impact that they had on our lives in this community. The things that we enjoy, the privileges that we enjoy in this town, wow, it is absolutely amazing. Last I know, we covered a lot of ground about Lester A. Smith, and I want to ask you another question now. Somebody asked me, said, "Well, what do that A mean?" It's just like Fred G. Sanford said, "What do that A mean in Lester Smith's name?" I know what it means, but I want you to tell the audience what it means.
The A stands for Andre. That's my middle name, Andre. And my mom most folks spell Andre Andre apostrophe. My mom deliberately spelled it Andrei.
Yeah.
She came up with all little quirk on it. I mean, I don't know why she did it, but she put an I on the end of my name, so that's where that came from.
Okay. Andre. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna have to get out of here, but I just still want you to. I'm gonna give you the last 3 minutes to sum up and tell Pensacola any and everything about Lester Smith that we hadn't already talked about. Lester.
I doubt any. I doubt if you could. Is anything else that could add about me? Uh, I think what you see is what you get. Uh, I'm not pretentious. I don't fake it to make it. If you don't like me today, you're not going to like me tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow because I'm going to be the same person. Uh, I like to help people, and one thing that I do know, uh, if you are in the public eye, you are out there. There are always people who don't like you. And one thing about it, if you live your life trying to make everybody like you, you'll see the cemetery sooner than you'll see the rest of your life. So you got to just accept you for what you are, do the best you can, try to treat everybody right. Sometimes you can't. We all make mistakes. If I make a mistake, it's a mistake of the head, not of the heart, because I never will intentionally do anything to hurt anybody. We all get mad. We all get angry. We all say things. Uh, I'm not immune to that. If I do that, then you just take it, as, hey, look here. Everybody has those moments. I'm a human being. I'm entitled to be pissed off. So if I can't get pissed off and you get by it, can't get by it, then we'll just have to agree to disagree. Uh, but just all I would ask anybody to do is just, if you're on this earth, uh, try to leave something positive with somebody. I don't care how small it is, just try to leave something positive with somebody. And us as elder statesmen and senior citizens and all of that, what we need to do is just concentrate on cultivating our youth because that's our future. We got to work with them, even though they can appear to be knuckleheads. We know it. We were knuckleheads at one time in our life, and Vern, you and I, we turned out to be pretty good. So if we just keep working with them, I mean, they're gonna buck against you, but we know there's light at the end of the tunnel. So just keep investing in our youth and stay prayed up, and I think we'll be all right.
All right, Lester. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this time with you. Pensacola, I thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you again on another edition of Pensacola's Unsung Hero. Lester, thank you again, man.
Vern, thank you so very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Will do. Thank you now.
All right, man.